Hello and welcome back. In this video we'll be looking at Jupyter Notebooks, which is an alternative development environment that can be used for documenting your code. So what is a Jupyter Notebook? Well, it's a combination of text descriptions, graphs, and working code all in the same document. It's an alternative development environment different than Spider, and Jupyter Notebooks work best when they're telling a code story from data input to data output. It runs within your browser and allows you to dynamically change bits of your code and see the results that result from that. It's highly useful for documenting what your code is doing because it shows both the inputs, your functions, and the outputs. However, a weakness of Jupyter Notebooks is that they're not useful for writing complex functions that require debugging because the debugging tools are pretty limited within Jupyter Notebooks. Instead, I recommend using Jupyter Notebooks when you want to document that a code is working and to share the outputs of that. It's an alternative to copy and pasting everything into a Microsoft Word document. It's a really good tutorial on Jupyter Notebooks down here at the bottom. So let's go back to Spider, where we've been looking so far. And remember this Python Basics 2 code. We had one section of code that is using NumPy to create different types of arrays. And then we had another section or cell of code that is using matplotlib. And so to remind you how that's working, we can run the first cell right here, and we can see the variable explorer. We can see that A, B, and C were all defined as different types of variables. And we can go and run this section of code that's going to generate a plot for us. And you don't see anything right here, but if you go into the plots window, you can see the plot that was generated. So now let's take a look at what this would look like in a Jupyter Notebook instead. So first off, we would have installed Jupyter Notebooks when we installed Anaconda, so hopefully you already have that. So I'm going to start, and look, and it shows me the Jupyter Notebook. And it's going to load Jupyter Notebook within our web browser. So it's a web browser-based development environment. Okay, here's some commands that it's issuing to get things started. Okay, it's almost loaded up. Jupyter Notebook is a bit slow. Still coming. Okay. And so now I want to select the folder where I want to be doing this. So I want to be putting this under Documents. Okay, I'm going to find my BME 2315 folder in the Python folder. Okay, so now I'm in the folder where I want to be. As you can see, this is where I keep my Python files. And I'm going to create a new Python 3 notebook. And so what's special about Jupyter Notebook is it combines different types of text and code all together. So for example, if I start with say Markdown, that's the code. Actually, let's use a heading instead because it's going to be at the top. It's going to start with a level 2 heading. And I say Python Basics 2 Jupyter Notebook. Now I hit Control Enter. That'll submit it and render it like this. Let me also call this Python Basics 2 as the name of my notebook. Okay, and so in this we can then, there are various cells created. So this cell is a markup cell. If I hit the plus sign, it'll create a new console. And so for example, I could say x equals 5, hit Shift Enter to run it. And it didn't show me anything right here, but I can tell that it, if I hit X and then Control Enter, that it does have a variable called X, and that its value is 5. So as you can see, it's already a little bit more clunky than Spider. But let's add some more code so you get the idea a little bit more. So if we copy all of this code right here, I remember it's in my browser, create a new cell like this. Then, as you see, I had this big chunk of code that I was copied in here, and it ran all this code and had an initial result. Now, I don't have any text description right here, so I can say here are some example codes for creating arrays in NumPy. That's what we're using, right? And I can use the arrow key to put it up above and make sure that that is of type markdown rather than NumPy. Okay, and then again you can hit Control Enter to run the current cell, or Shift Enter to run the current cell and then advance. And so we are rerunning this code right here. Okay, so that's showing us that we can import code and that it's running each time. So let's do that with the next bit of code that might even be more clear, because it's a good example of why you'd want to use Jupyter Notebook. So I say here is some example code for plotting a function. And I'm going to make that type markdown. Hit Shift Enter. Okay, and then I'm going to Control V and Shift Enter right here. Okay, so you see we copied in our plotting code, and it shows the output right embedded right in here. So we've got the code and the outputs all together. And then, for example, you can change things pretty dynamically. So this is different than a PDF, because I can change this number right here, hit Shift Enter, and you see it updates the plot each time. We could say, again, oops. Say 0.9, and Shift Enter, and it changed the plot again. So you can go do this dynamically. So it's kind of like copying and pasting all your code and outputs into a Microsoft Word document. On the other hand, that it's all actually all together in one place, and you can change the code and prove that this code is generating these outputs. Now, when you want to share this with somebody, you can either share the file with them, and let me show you where that file is. In my Python directory. Right, there'll be files with a suffix of IPYNB for IPy notebook. Okay, so you look for a file like that. I can't seem to find the one for this. Oh no, here it is. It's this one, pythonbasics2.ipynb. So you could save the file, but then they need to use access to Jupyter Notebooks to do that. So instead, what you can do is you can do File, Download As, and export to, say, a PDF. However, my PDF exporter was broken, and so another way to do this that was just as good is do Print Preview. So once you do the print preview, this is going to show a fixed document that you can't execute anymore, but it shows all the labels, code, and outputs together, and then I can hit Control P to print this to a PDF. And I'm going to try to put it back in the same place so that I have all my code together. Okay, so this is the print preview, and then there you go. There's the PDF that showed up. I open this PDF. We can see the output from this notebook. So it documents the time, this, like this. So this is more like what you could submit as a homework assignment. Or just document that a piece of code was giving a certain result. This is more like a lab notebook output, which is very nice. So I hope that is helpful to you, and I'll see you next time.